So I was absent for last week's episode. I had a big trip I had to take to Europe actually, and I just got back. And I listened on the plane ride back. I downloaded the episode and I listened to it, and man, um, things got pretty heavy there, huh? Like I
A
didn't
little
think I
bit.
was like the comedy relief guy, but like, what
It
was? I mean, what's going on? You guys
we
good?
we we did we did think about that, like, holy shit, that was pretty heavy. We went way into the deep end without you there, I guess. Um
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
I guess I'm
s-
kind of like not the anchor, but like the buoy. Right?
right,
Like
that's you keep us
yeah,
afloat.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, sorry
That
if this episode's not quite as deep, but I'm gonna try to keep things a little more lighthearted anyway.
Now that works.
So yeah,
That Facebook shit had
five
me
people
fired
got
up.
killed with a bow and arrow in Norway yesterday, and let me just say this: the viral marketing for these Marvel movies has got to stop. This shit. I mean, I know Hawkeye's like a fan favorite, but legitimately, that's pushing it a little too far. I mean, wow. And
The
they called me out there. They're like, "We need your help." And I'm like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Just fly over." I'm like, "Okay." So I show up and it was really crazy. You know who I met at the airport? Now I know, like Europe is really lax on like their rehabilitation and not lax, I should say, but they do it, properly and like everything like that. But
right, right.
craziest part is I get to the airport, everyone's like, "Hold the door," and I don't know what the fuck they're saying, so I need someone that speaks English. And I go to my like not my taxi driver, but like my ambassador while I'm there, and it's Anders Breivik.
Oh,
And
he got okay. Was he released?
well, yeah, it's part of his thing. It's like
He's
community service. He has to work as like an
uh
ambassador to people coming in, which realistically, I mean, uh, pretty cool, honestly. Like really cool guy.
I
Great,
suppose.
yeah, great taste in music. Um, but I just thought that was kind of strange. So yeah. Anyway, they pull me onto the set, and for those listening, I have a storied background in archery, so I was kind of like a uh not really like a consultant, more like a just there to make sure everything is like kosher as far as the laws and stuff go. And I'm like,
Right.
you could probably, shoot someone in the leg and then give them like, a couple hundred grand, like, oh yeah, viral marketing. They killed 5 people. And I mean, I saw the whole thing happen. I couldn't do anything to stop it. Not that I really wanted to. It was fucking sweet. But no, realistically though, like can you walk me through the logistics? Because I've never fired a bow and arrow in my life outside of maybe once in my high school gym class. Can you walk me through the logistics of what it would take to kill not just one, but 5 people with a bow and
So
arrow in current year?
so right, I was not I caught the headline, but I was not aware oh that well, one, that you were a consultant on the scene, and
Not
two
a consultant,
that
just uh they kept referring me to a witnessing party. Witnessing party, they said. You're here as a
okay,
witnessing
witnessing
party. I don't know
party.
what that means. And I don't know also I also don't know what that implies, but they just kept saying witnessing party. I'm like, all right.
Probably something in like Norwegian code law, like whatever.
Sure.
Any
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, Hergen Durgan.
And were, were the murders in quick succession, or were they like one at a time?
So
Because like I would be pretty impressed if it was like five in like if he just was
so
like it was 20
believe it or
seconds and it was
not,
all over.
no, believe it or not, it was a collateral kill. He got 5 at once. No, that'd be crazy. Could you imagine?
Oh,
But
he's-
yeah, no, it was a collab. No, so he went from house to house. He broke into someone's house, killed 2 people, I think, with the bow and arrow. Broke into another house, and a witness, one person who was left alive, they stated this in an official police report. He was also wielding a buckler, like a shield,
I'm like,
like a small,
okay, yeah,
yeah, like a
like on
small
the wrist
shield
or
from like,
something.
yeah. And I'm
Okay,
legitimately sitting here trying to picture this, and because you have to understand, I was talking about this with my therapist, and I told her, I'm like, look, 300 years ago, if you knew how to use a short bow or a recurve bow, like you were king. Like that was the strap. Like you just carried that shit on you. I don't care what kind of samurai or knight or whoever walks up to me. If I can get, 10, 20 yards between us, he's dead before he gets to me. He's a pincushion.
Right.
So that
This
skill, I think, should be kind of, carried over because it's useful for hunting and blah, 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 for clean kills. But the buckler is what really sort of set me back. I'm like, I don't really understand. And then I realized it. I said, oh, okay. Marvel is really popping off. The whole Endgame thing was great. Now they're doing all these Disney Plus shows. There's this Hawkeye show coming out pretty soon because Jeremy Renner is still not canceled somehow, despite being
right.
possibly, a serial a serial wife beater. But
Well, and that,
despite
and
all that,
now inciting bow and arrow violence
sure,
globally.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, holy hell, could you imagine? 5 people with a bow and arrow. That's just crazy. No, I mean, yeah, I sat there reading that article and I couldn't fucking believe it. I thought it was like The Onion or something. And
Yeah,
no, it
he's
wasn't. It
straight
was
was like he woke up and chose ranger class
yeah,
and was
that's what I'm
like
saying. Like the dude literally
this,
like
he
have you ever
was,
seen those shirts that's like what is it? Uh it's like I'm a gamer. Don't make me mad because you look like just enough XP. Like that shit legitimately happened in Norway last night, like I or 2 days ago, or like whenever the fuck it was. That shit was crazy.
what
Man.
a I mean, yeah, I can't believe his motivation was Marvel movies and like advertising. That's the only thing that makes sense. It's
I
not
mean,
even
where else do you see bow and arrows in like modern
right.
media? Nowhere.
You know what? If you were like gonna go on a rampage, like if somebody went on a spree with a bow and arrow, like straight up was like in a mall going at it, like you have like no matter how horrific it is, you have to kind of respect it, cause like that's, I mean it's work. It's not
It
the same.
is.
It's not the same as shooting, but like this dude went house to house. He was like, what did he do? Like just pick off old people?
Here's the thing. I feel like because I don't think it was in a mall or anything like that. I think he just went
Right.
on like a small rampage in like a suburban neighborhood or something. I could be wrong, but it's just like the fucking Google Translate site app thing was not very good, and I kept reading shit off the local news because I don't trust any of the other ones. But so from what I understand, yeah, he killed 5 people, injured one, and they arrested him shortly after. Here's the thing, if he did do it in a mall, like, let's say you and I are walking through a mall together and we turn to our left, because you have to understand these things are silent. So,
Right.
the mall is like, there's a bunch of people talking, there's probably some shitty, like, Kesha music playing on the radio or something. People are screaming, kids are crying, blah, blah, blah. You turn to your left and you just see a guy is on the floor and there's an arrow sticking out of his chest. First
Oh
thing I'd
shit,
think
dude.
is like, oh, cool, performance art or whatever. And then I see another one on the chest, like lying on down. I'm like, oh, it's like a flash mob type thing. I probably wouldn't actually believe that someone's killing people with a bow and arrow until probably like the third, maybe fourth body, because
Right.
that's so far removed from reality that that's just fucking crazy. Like, the US obviously has the gun problem. The UK and China, knives are like the fucking devil's weapon because everyone just stabs everyone because you can't really get guns. I did
Oh
not
man.
think there would be a place in the hierarchy for for a weapon
For
as
a
majestic and practiced as the bow and arrow.
right.
It's just
What
so nuts.
a storied history.
Like
It's
next
very
thing is gonna be like we're gonna wake up and someone in in like Mexico City is gonna be accused of killing like 9
well.
people with a bow staff or nunchucks.
So like, what would be? I mean, obviously, in a hypothetical situation, what is like the most badass spree killing weapon that you could think of? Like where like you couldn't even be mad at the dude for like getting a body count.
Okay,
Like for
I'm
me,
gonna go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, do your thing. I have to find the name of it.
Oh, okay. Well, cuz like I'm trying to think of like there's two I have two off the top of my head. And they're very similar weapons. So like one for me would be like the boomerang. Like if some dude was just so
Okay.
fucking skilled with a boomerang, like he's up on the second floor of a mall just whipping it down, hitting people in the head and getting it back. Two, there's like some like Indonesian, like some kind
No
of
way you're
like
talking about the whip sword.
so
No way you're talking about the whip sword.
no, not the whip sword.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
a boomerang. It's like this bladed, like it has like 2 to 4 blades on it, and you chuck it and it comes back like a boomerang, but it's
Okay.
bladed
Okay.
and you catch it. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
gnarly. Whip
So
swords are badass, but that's not what I was thinking of. Is that
okay, I thought you were because that's what I was gonna say. There's yeah, it's either an Indian or Indonesian, some like Pacific islander weapon from like a long time ago. I'm trying to find it. I think it's called a
uh
kurumi.
I think
Uh
even in India they used those, didn't they?
yeah, I
Like
think
ancient
so.
India, they
Yeah.
used
I
whip
think
swords.
it's let me just look it up. Urumi, that's what it is. Not yeah, not kurumi. Urumi. Here's what this thing looks like. Let me just pop this image in here. For audio listeners, we'll explain it. All right.
It's like
So
Ivy
there's
from Soul
that.
Calibur, right?
Okay.
I mean,
No,
she uses
that's
a
what it
straight
looks
up
like
whip.
right there.
But,
So
okay,
to try to
that's
give an
badass.
explanation of this, imagine like a cat of nine tails, like a whip, right? But instead of like, sharp leather or like cured leather on the ends, it's literally bending metal. Like it's sharp, sometimes serrated metal that's like I think anywhere from like 4 to 7 pieces of metal that are like a whip but in blade form, and
Oh,
you
that's
you
so
can wield two of them
savage.
at once. Yeah.
If
So
somebody just ran through a crowd like that,
just spinning, like doing the fucking
right?
Bart Simpson, fucking hurricane hands, like that shit would kill like a dozen people instantly. Probably a dog, neighbors, like everyone would just die. So that's probably up there for me. I'm a big fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'd say a Psy or possibly dual wielding Psy would be pretty badass
Ah,
if you could kill people with some of those. Bonus points if you could throw one and kill
yeah,
someone
dude.
with it accurately.
If you went on a spree with nunchucks, do you know how fucking badass that is? Kind of
That
in
would
a
be
way, like,
sick. Problem is
like,
that's the whole Batman thing, right? Like, at what
right,
point are you sure that guy's dead and not just like a vegetable for the rest of his life? Because I don't count it on the KDA if that dude can wake up from a coma 30 years from now. He has to,
right.
be 6 feet under.
That's fucking yeah. I mean, that's too difficult. I should think of that's too much of a fantasy land because you probably aren't getting shit done like that.
I'm thinking
What's that?
Dynasty Warriors, like a spear, like a
Yeah,
big spear, go
what
glue
is
on some
the
people.
like the naga or whatever? Not the like the
Oh
big
yeah, yeah, yeah.
nagatina or whatever, like the big
Yes,
spear
yeah, the
with like the
Naginata or whatever, the
cutlass.
big ass
Yeah,
bladed spear. Yeah,
yes, that's
yeah, that
kind of
thing's tight.
badass. Um,
Yeah.
I
All right,
could
we're
just
just
see
naming
somebody
weapons at this
like,
point. Anyway,
well, basically we are, but like,
yeah. Point being, I understand, folks. It's a tragedy. I'm sad. My fucking heart's out to those families. But let's be real for just 1 second. Let's just pull back the cloak. 5 people died to a bow and arrow in current year in a civilized first world country.
right in the year
I think,
2021,
yeah,
5 people
that
died in a
that
bow and arrow
should be
attack.
of some like import. I think like that is. I don't respect people that murder people who are innocent or whatever.
Yeah,
But I
we're
have
not.
to be like the method, like,
Yeah,
it's
this is
absurd.
this is no way condoning it or anything. It's terrible. It's a tragedy. It's
Yeah.
it, it's it's savagery and I don't know anything about the case, but I'm sure it's sadness for no reason.
Right.
But he did use a bow and arrow.
He
You know
did
what I
use a bow
mean?
and arrow. Yeah.
He did use a bow and arrow. And that does like I mean, especially if he was like fast knocking that or whatever, like just like ripping it out of
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Like
quiver.
a hip
If he
quiver
had a
type setup. That'd be crazy.
yeah, and he was just like like a second. He had that thing loaded and
Hmm.
gone. That's that's skill. I
Have you
respect
ever seen a
that. I
movie?
respect that part.
Yeah. You ever seen that movie? We Need to Talk About Kevin.
I actually did, or I watched like a cut up version on YouTube. I think.
Okay. Yeah. That movie's about like a kid that's like just the whole movie's
Right,
about
he's
his
like
mom basically raising like the devil. Like her
right.
kid is like sociopathic from like toddler age, and he's just like incapable of empathy and everything. Point being, at the end of the movie, he's a school shooter, but he also uses a bow and arrow. And I thought that was crazy, but then it happened in real life, and I'm like, holy fuck.
Life imitates art.
Yeah.
I
Um,
think people say it's the other way around, but I
right.
think it's who knows. Who knows?
Here's the thing. After that happened, me and my friends had a discussion. It kind of prompted some stuff, and I want to kind of try to sort of push this ultimatum on you. Okay, so you have two
Okay.
options. Let's say, because we're getting pretty close to a new year, a fresh start, maybe away from all this fucking COVID business. Hopefully, at some point. But let's say next year you have an option. Like your New Year's resolution is not a resolution; it's like a gift. It's a wish, and you can make one of two things happen. Your first option
Okay.
is total world peace, like humanity all unite. We set aside our differences. We like abolish any sort of slave trade, indentured servitude, violence, wars are gone, everything's gone, like world
Nah,
hunger's cured, everything. But
not interested.
but nobody for the rest of time, nobody ever says anything funny. There's
Dude,
never any form of like comedy or laughter or anything that isn't just like a slight chuckle. Okay.
what's the second
Or
option?
your second option is immediately after January 1st, 2022, World War III starts,
Oh,
but the
I love this.
posting is immaculate. Like the posting
Oh,
is just at an all-time high. Twitter's popping off. The IG is hot. Finstas are going crazy. Everyone's like in the shit because it's probably the U.S., China, Russia, North Korea, maybe a couple other stragglers in there trying to prove themselves. But the like it's awful. There's treachery. Fucking
oh,
dictators are sprouting up
nukes,
everywhere.
bombs.
Yeah, Texas secedes immediately. Abbott
Dude,
is getting fucking blasted on IG Live, but the posting is immaculate. Like everything is
this
funny.
this isn't even a hypothetical for me. I'm like literally praying for number 2. Like
It would
that's what I
be
want to
it
happen every day.
so here's the thing, all my friends said the same thing. So I had to kind of put a little like a monkey's paw curling type thing on the second option, okay?
Okay,
Should
okay.
you choose number 2, randomly out of your selected friends, family not included, out of your selected friends, 2 of them will die as a result of World War
Mm,
III.
I
Like
feel so,
guaranteed to
I
die, not even like a they're in peril or whatever. Like everyone's in peril. It's World War III, but 2 of them will automatically, like as a result of the war, die.
well, like I feel like terrible about that, but real shit, dude, no laughter again. Like I could never have that.
Right.
You know what I
I think
mean?
I have
I
to
just couldn't
agree.
have
Yeah.
it.
We could
Like,
recover from World War III. I don't think I could ever recover from not being able to crack a funny
dude,
once in a while, Yeah,
never
nice
having poo
guffaw
poo
every
pee
now
pee
and then.
jokes, and like, yeah,
Yeah.
like it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I need that humor to cope, and
Mm.
I uh I often think we need some widespread devastation to remind people what real problems are.
Mhm.
Um, there's some real shit. Like, people
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
deserve
yeah.
peace. They don't deserve it.
Yeah, well, people always say that, like, hunger is the best seasoning, laughter is the best medicine, or whatever.
Right.
What people really don't realize is that levity is the true healer of everything. Once you can put everything into perspective, like, not trying to, self-report or dox, but I grew up in a third world country and moving to the United States. I don't get what everyone's complaining about. Now, I will
Right.
say, my skin is immaculately white, so I definitely have the upper hand when it comes to most of the social encounters in this country. But even beyond that, I am by no means like middle or upper middle class or anything along those lines. I grew up poor as fuck. But even then, like, this is literally the only country where you can legitimately pull your bootstraps up, and as long as you get a little lucky, and I mean, luck is just opportunity wearing overalls. Uh, as long as you can get a little lucky, you can really find yourself in a position to succeed with pretty much anything justifiable, I think. Like, obviously, if you pick some crazy, like, I want to be an actor or a stand-up comic or whatever, it's doable, it's possible. You have to work really fucking
Right.
hard, and you're competing against other people, which is never a position you want to put yourself in if all you want to do is make money. If it's a passion
Right.
thing, I get it, but if it's just making money, find a boring uninteresting, like low competition field and just excel at it, and boom, you're in the fucking game. Like,
Right.
it's not that hard. And it's the rat race, sure, but at the end of the fucking day, if you make in what, like 90% of this country, 95% of this country, if you're making 50, 60K a year, you're set. Like, there's really not a lot
And
you can complain about.
I mean, just the by virtue of being in the United States, the
Yes, you
impoverished
are in the
people in
one
the
percentile. Yeah.
right of you're in the 1% of Earth, because
Yeah.
Americans always talk about the 1%, the 1%. They're talking about the 1% of the U.S. When you have the entire global population,
Mhm.
Americans are in the 1%,
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah,
of
and I mean,
wealth
we've touched
inequality,
on that a little bit before, so I'm not
right?
wanting to, jump way back into
Well,
that, but
yeah.
I'm just saying,
So
like,
I get it.
right.
You have that, and like I also don't, not particularly to dox myself or anything, but I'm okay to talk about it, whatever really. Now, I think I've always looked at things with a kind of, I've been able to take a perspective beyond my own, like above
Mhm.
things, but also having had cancer now, I really could not do without humor.
Right.
Like, I was literally in the hospital and really fucked up at one point. And
Mhm.
the staff were like, I was cracking jokes, and they're like, they were not laughing. They're like, you shouldn't be joking. I'm like, dude, this is the only thing that I want. Right? I'd rather laugh. I'd rather go out
Yeah.
laughing than fucking like, I'll make myself laugh if you're not gonna laugh with me. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm not, you know what, no, fuck it. I am advocating for World War III. I am. I am. I don't even
Um,
care who's involved.
did you, by any chance, see the newest Dave Chappelle special?
I have not seen it yet. I
Oh,
pulled it up, but I
miss-
didn't
you're
watch it
missing
yet.
out. You're missing out.
I
Here's the thing. At some point after he came back from Africa, Dave Chappelle very subtly, and I don't mean
became a
this is
philosopher king.
yes. Yeah, he is no
Yeah.
longer just a stand-up comic. He is one of the few, I think, professional orators that we have left in modern society. For a while, and we talked about him a bit on the podcast before too. There was Jordan Peterson and
Right.
Ben Shapiro. Say what you want, they just talk about nonsense for the most part and make it sound appealing. I
Right.
legitimately think Dave Chappelle, given a position of power, not that he would want it, could probably fix a majority of the things that are wrong with this country. As long as he had like not like, the current corruption fucking based system, but some sort of like unequivocal, just omniscient power. That dude's got it handled. Like, I've never seen someone with such a fair and sort of common sense perspective incite such uh feelings of like, how should I put it? To me, it's just like reinforcing that, okay, we're really not that far gone. But then you
Right.
look at the response to the stuff that he's saying, and it's really hard to not feel that thing. The whole thing about the vocal minority, people say it a
Yes.
lot, but it's really important to take a step back, I think, and actually look at it, because there's legitimately probably only like, man, I'm just gonna spit a number out. I would be surprised if there was more than like 10,000 legitimate critics in the country, like
Right.
movie and film critics and stuff, who have like a voice, and they're the ones that are always bashing him. Like, if you look at the reviews for that one, his newest special, The Closer, it's like a 98% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, 34% critic score, and it was the same shit for his last one and the one before that. And it's because of all the stuff he's saying about trans people, and
Right.
he's making light of a lot of stuff. First off, he gets the excellent excuse of saying that he is a comedian. So I mean, free speech exists both ways. You can't fucking advocate for you to be able to say anything you want because you're your own person and you can be a woman or a man or whatever. Fine, that's awesome. But then you can't then not advocate not tolerate someone going back and saying, "Damn, that's weird." Like, that's literally all he's saying. He's like, "How peculiar," he's just pointing out funny things about this movement. And you should watch the special,
Right.
but the one part that really stood out about it, was he talked about because he's black and he's saying, "How are you guys moving this quickly?" He's like, "How does this movement have so much steam behind it?" He goes, "We've been doing this for 400 years and we still don't even have anything like close to the level that these people do in the last what 10, 20 years. It's been like a serious movement.
Right.
Obviously gay rights has been a thing since like the 80s, 70s with the pride parades and shit, but realistically with the advent of the internet is when it became really huge.
Right.
And now it's like they just get to go wherever they want, do whatever they want. They get to advocate for shit that just doesn't even make any sense, like the gender neutral bathrooms and all this other shit. Like, look, I don't care who's pissing next to me. I care who's pissing next to my daughter or to my niece or to my son.
Right.
That shit to me is important. Like, and if you want to say, okay, just close off the stalls, well, then you're right back to the same fucking thing. Why does it matter if it's gender neutral? You're really scared that what do you mean? Like, I don't fucking it's just such a silly small thing to get so mad about. It's like having a fly in your soup and fucking knocking over the table for it. What are you doing?
Right. And
But anyway, it's a good special.
so I did see a bunch of people posting. I don't remember what media outlet was it said Dave Chappelle is using his white privilege. That was the tagline underneath the headline about his special, and
That's a good headline. That's a
I
really good
was
headline.
too enraged to even look at it. I refuse to click bait on those things because I won't let them control me. But I did see that, and I'm wondering if you had seen that at all or knew what that was
No,
about.
I didn't see that one, but there was one that was talking about how so he talks about this in the special as well, where he just like he punches down a lot, and I mean, I
Good.
would argue no, I would argue he punches back, like he doesn't punch
Okay.
down or punch up. I'd say he punches back, but if anything, he actually has a line again in the special. If you watch it, he had a friend of his, a transgender woman friend of his, actually, that ended up
Hmm.
killing herself due to just totally unrelated circumstances a few years ago. But when he came out with that first special and the trans community, basically shit piled on him for months, she came out, a trans woman, she came out and said, Dave was the first person of any importance to ever give me a shot to open. Like she opened for one of his shows and she fucking bombed apparently, but she still got the chance to open for Dave fucking Chappelle. And she
Right.
said, he doesn't punch down, he doesn't punch up, he punches lines, and he is a master of his craft. And
Yeah.
if at the end of the day you cannot respect that is what he does, because it's still beyond all this messaging and philosophy and everything, it's just comedy. He's really funny still. And that's the
Right.
craziest part about it, is that I'm sitting there laughing, and then 2 seconds later I'm like chin rubbing, like, yes, he does have a point. And then I'm laughing again. Like, he's so fucking good at it. Like, he carries you away.
Yeah. I think part of what you had said something when you were talking about it, like having to do with this special and especially around like gender identity and trans people.
Hmm.
So you know how there's this whole movement where like to use the term birthing people instead of like pregnant women and stuff like that, or
Sure.
because men can be pregnant too, they say, which
Right.
is not true, but okay, they want to say that. So now, Texas was passing those abortion laws, and
Which
it's
are
oh,
also fucking crazy for
oh
their own reasons.
so
But yeah,
absolutely, I agree that I don't like government legislating anything like that. Like,
no.
but this is actually hilarious in my book. So they start all these, activists start saying a woman's right to choose, woman's body, her choice. And they said, well, men can get pregnant too, as you said, so men can legislate abortion. And it just like, I just saw that fucking judo flip right back into that. I was like, oh shit. They took that punch and then chucked him over their shoulder.
Yeah, the reverse Uno card of legislature. That's hype.
Uh, that was actually the fucking tightest thing I had seen all week. I'm like, because they just use your words against you. Like you literally
Yeah,
can't argue it.
yeah. I don't want to bash against their movement or do anything like this. Not because
I
I think
do.
it's wrong. I just don't care. I really don't
Well,
care.
right.
And I care so little about what's happening to those people because like they always go through this thing, and I'm doing it again because I guess about it a little bit, but only because it frustrates me. Because they do this thing where they will play not just the victim, but they will say, I am still a person, I am still a human, I am still this, that, and the other. Sure, I'll give you that. Everyone deserves the, basic human rights, shelter, food,
Right.
whatever, blah, blah, blah. If you're lucky enough to live in a first person country, you also get sick stuff like free speech, non-tyrannical governments demanding your fucking quotas for food and tax and labor every month. That's really hype. You
Right.
also get to not experience the horrors of a genocide and a civil war, which have still happened in the last couple hundred years in a lot of places, even in the last like 20 or 30 places in a lot
Shit,
of
even the
places.
last, yeah,
Currently
last
happening
20.
right now in North Korea, in China, in multiple other places. So yeah, I mean, definitely me calling you sir or ma'am instead of the thing that you present yourself as. I get that you want that to happen. At some point, you got to know when to fold them. And I think when you
Right.
have a country that's in the state that America is, that the state that the US is in, you really got to understand that like it's not even it's like the them who cried wolf, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get to only pick so many fights before you are surrounded. Like
Yes.
if I'm in a hallway and I have 10 big dudes in front of me, I would rather knock each of them out one by one and make sure I can finish each one instead of surrounding myself and having to fight 1v10. Like that's kind of what they're doing. They're like setting themselves. And I understand the movement is made up of all these individuals, and I'm not trying to generalize one way or the other, but every time something like this happens, they come back with double the amount of anger, double the amount of vitriol, double the amount of calling for, cancels or death outright in some
Right.
cases, calling for like it's crazy. And yeah, it's a crazy thing. I don't know. I don't have a
Yeah.
whole lot more to say about that than that. I wish
Yeah.
people could get along based on more than just the labels and kind of
Yeah.
appearances that they
I
choose to put on them because that's extremely shallow.
I don't know how deep we should go into this, but I have a
I am the buoy.
like
Keep that in mind.
I have a god honest uh opinion on trans people that uh I think that if you are a adult of 25 years of age approximately or older, which I'll qualify why that age here in a minute. If you actually are taking hormones and having surgery to change your gender, there's actually something cool about that. It's
Yeah, it's like
actually
cyberpunk as
very
fuck. Yeah.
transhumanist sci-fi-ish.
Yeah.
Like you're you're doing something we were never able to do in human history, and you're on like the forefront of actually you're literally denying your physical biology and becoming what you want.
Hmm.
And I know they probably don't look at it like that, but for me as my outsider perspective, I can respect that. I think that's cool, right? Um where like you just are becoming something entirely different. Even if you don't feel like I mean, I know a lot of them feel internally that they are. Um
Hmm.
so now why I qualified that with 25 years of age is the human brain is still forming until, especially the male brain, until you're approximately 25 years old. And I think a lot of people don't know that. They think like you hit puberty 13 through 16 and then 18 you're an adult and pff, it's all over. But
I
your
thought that was
frontal
the
lobe
penis
is
that was still forming until you're 25. Is
dude,
is it the
mine's
brain?
still forming.
Yours is still
the
going? Okay,
mine's
maybe I got
still
something to look forward
it's
to. You hear
I'm
that, little
waiting
guy?
for
All
it.
right.
I'm hoping
No,
it'll
yeah,
grow.
yeah.
Uh
Yeah, it's a pretty
the
common thing as far as like, yeah, you're so there's the whole thing we
so
talked about earlier, not earlier, but like in a previous episode where, atoms become atoms and matter changes and your whole
right.
physiology changes over the course of 8 years, whatever. But yeah, brain is different. That shit
Right.
is
It
ever
doesn't
fucking growing.
regenerate.
But yeah, it fully forms in kind of your id, I guess, like your fucking main kind of formation does, yeah, sort of peter out around, yeah, like early to like late 20s.
Right. And so I have a whole thing where I can't really prove this part, but I think a lot of gender dysmorphia is based in probably actually lack of the necessary or imbalance of the proper sex hormones for your biological gender. So if you're a
Mm,
man who feels like a woman, before you try estrogen to become more of a woman, maybe you should try testosterone.
mhm,
But I don't think you should do either if you're not an adult and of 25 years of age, because the effects either have on your brain is unnatural to your
mhm,
physiology. You need to correct your diet. Like it's things people aren't going to do. Because like
mhm,
even if you're relatively in shape, even if you're not overweight, but you have these, you're not sleeping well, you feel like a different gender, you do like what is your diet like? Is it balanced? What are you eating? Microplastics and soy constantly. And I know the whole soy boy meme is a thing, and I'm actually not anti soy. But there's a difference between like natural soy from soybeans, like tofu, and like processed soy that's in everything, like soybean oils. And you don't
yeah,
want the oils. Like you can have all the tofu you want, you're not gonna get tits or anything like that. But when you start having like soy oil and everything, you start getting like that's where you start getting into like the billions of parts per million or whatever, however it's fucking measured of estrogenic compounds within the soy oil, where it actually is detrimental to your development, especially if you're young. Um,
mhm,
so that's a whole it's a whole separate rant. But I think at a base level, if you're an adult with a good grasp on your life and it's just what you want to do and it's what you feel, I think there is a transhuman aspect to that where like we're going that way anyway. Like we're gonna have in like 10 to 20 years, we're gonna with CRISPR, we're gonna have so much bigger things to worry about than somebody wanting to be trans. We're gonna have designer babies pretty soon.
yeah.
Like you pick what you're gonna have AIDS immunity and blue eyes and like it's we're not even gonna like people are gonna be splicing themselves with fucking reptile genes and stuff. It's gonna be like it's gonna be fucking Batman Beyond. Like it's not gonna be somebody wanting to be like have a penis or vagina is gonna be so mundane. Um,
Yeah.
in the coming age.
I wonder, um, hmm, when we so let's talk about like the Neuralink thing, like for a second. I'm sure you're at least somewhat familiar. That's like
Yeah,
the
I'm slightly aware.
yeah, yeah, it's the company Musk founded and is trying to basically make it so that like you can use your brain to process like not just information but also just like speed everything up, whether it's conversation with another person, processing information, even things like while you're sleeping, like the Neuralink can be used to like enhance your not just quality of life, but also gain information and stuff while you're resting. But I wonder how far before or how long until rather it gets to a point where we sort of just kind of what you were saying, transcend the need for something like gender labels and even stuff like yeah, like masculine versus feminine or this or that. Like high fashion has always been totally outside the bounds of all of this stuff.
Right.
And art for the most part has also been outside the bounds of this stuff. Like one of my favorite painters, God help me, I can't say her name because it's really hard to say, is this Korean woman that used to draw like some of the most brutal, gory, like just nasty fucking devil satanic like angels versus demons type shit. And all of them
Oh,
look super
dope.
cool. I have one as my desktop background right now.
Yeah, I want to
And
see those.
then you look at other painters like Monet, who draws some of the most beautiful floral, like, stills and landscapes. And like art is never gendered, and media, for the most part, is not gendered. The only thing that's gendered is the stuff that affects gender, like sports and fucking restrooms and faculty and stuff
Right.
relating to recreation. Nothing else of like I think real importance is gendered other than stuff like, the power dynamic between men and women. And what has slowly kind of instilled its way throughout human civilization is that men always are like leading and then the women are subservient. That's unfortunate because I don't think that should be the case. I think women
Right.
have a very biological, and again, this is a pretty serious generalization, but women have a very biological not tendency, but they lean towards more like empathy and affection. So I really wonder why they don't counsel over stuff like hospitalization, education, fucking like even stuff like energy and shit like that. You don't have to be smart to know where resources need to go. You need to be informed. And being smart and
Right.
informed are two different things. Like you don't need to be a really fucking like learned person to understand, oh, this is what our resources are. Where should we put them? Stuff like that, I think, should for the most part be fucking left to the people that are best at it. And just generally speaking, if you think of hospitality, that's why most nurses are women. That's why most, waitresses, or I suppose waiters, I guess, are women. That's why stuff like that, it's not even sexist. It's just like they're just better at it because people like when they're in those positions. They get
It
reminded of
yeah,
being
it
fucking, straddled by their or straddled is not the what not the right
straddled
word.
by mommy.
Swaddled. That's the one I'm looking for. Swaddled by their mother or whatever. So
uh,
shit like that is just like it's instilled into our brains, and that's because of biological, chemicals and the sort of reflexes that we have towards that stuff.
yeah, and yeah, there's a so I was actually just watching a fucking debate on this stuff, and it has to do a lot too with men and women's temperament, where like um you find these kind of things on average where women are better caregivers and are more agreeable. So you find them as nurses, and men are more aggressive and assertive. So you find them in positions that require that. But the difference between men and women is it's essentially split like 60-40.
Mhm.
So it's a difference, and it's correct, to assume a man is more aggressive, and it's correct to assume a woman is more agreeable, but the difference is not as great as people might think.
Yeah.
But it is a measurable difference, and
Mhm.
beyond half on each side. But it's one of those things where it's partially why you can't force equality. Why like
Sure.
Norway, like countries like Norway have tried and tried and tried, but they cannot get female engineers in the same way they can men. But it has to do with the way, if it's hormonal changes, like if it's what drives the male mind, but the
Mhm.
way that men can distance themselves from personal relationships and only care about things. Like
Yeah.
they're intrigued by them in a way that most women cannot be. They're
Yeah.
much more agreeable, personal, sociable, and so no matter how much you try to legally enforce certain standards, you won't be able to fill them because they don't exist.
Mhm.
Because there is a difference between us. It
Yeah.
isn't 50-50.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look in so Japan currently has more women in the workforce than men. And that's because
Right,
like unemployment among young men in Japan is at an all-time low. They're called NEETs. I'm sure you're familiar. It's like an old
right,
4chan thing. It's not employed, educated, or in training. Uh, so they're just like sitting at home. Japan has a very generous like universal basic income type thing until I think you're 25 or something like that, where you just get a stipend from the government for like basic, shelter, food, etc. And
right.
and 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 usually if you're still with your parents, it just goes to them. So that's kind of how they pay for you or whatever. But women in Japan aren't, porn addicted, fucking playing a rogue all day and fucking, watching anime and fucking jerking off to JAVs like I am. So
Right.
they instead are, actively working and seeking out further positions and stuff. But even there, they experience the same problem that women in America do. It's not even a problem, it's just they experience the same natural kind of thing is, and again, this sounds so weird to say it, but it's just natural. Once you get to a certain age as a woman, your brain literally starts sending you messages like, hey, those ovaries down there aren't going to be there forever. You may want to think about doing something there. And women in the United States, like, it's crazy. Like, up until like just after college, women do far better in schooling and academia than men do. Far better as far as grades and stuff go. They're more focused, they're
Right.
more organized, they're more, yeah, they're more personable, they're more social. They just do far better in academia. But then right after college into their like mid to early 30s, they drop out of the workforce usually, and it's to have a family because they're like, oh, well, if I want a kid, I'm on a timeline. Men don't have to worry about that problem. If I want a kid at 60, shit, as long as there's a little blue pill I can take, I can pop off whenever I want. Whereas
Right.
women, they're on a clock, and that's fair is not something I think you can assign to the cycle of life. But if I had to
Right.
just be a totally omniscient being, I would say that's not fair to them. So they feel forced to make one decision or the other, and most people want kids. Why? That's an even more interesting question because I couldn't fucking imagine it. But most people want kids, and they want kids so they can raise a family and have a legacy, and this, that, and the other. And women more so have it because it's like, well, they want someone to take care of, they want someone to show the world to, and this, that, and the other. And because of that, they have to put themselves on a not on a lower level, but they have to basically voluntarily give themselves a massive disadvantage against a man who is just as skilled, just as committed, and like motivated in that same position because they don't have to worry about that. So I get
Right.
it. I mean, I feel for him, but you can't then go back on that and say, oh well, because that happened, I want more back from this, that, or the other. It's still a choice at the end of the day. Like,
Right.
you still have a choice that you get to make of like if you want to do this, that, or the other. If you choose to try to settle down and have a family and put your career on hold or put your work on hold, that's understandable. That's I would even say fucking uh courageous maybe is not the right word, but it's like respectable. And what's not respectable to me is after that, then lamenting the fact that you missed out on so much because of it. Well, that's what happens when you have kids of any kind.
Right.
Fucking like get a dog and just and fucking see how that
Fuck.
goes for a year and like see if you
Right.
really think you're taking care of this. I promise you, if dogs could talk, so few people would have dogs. It's crazy because they would be like, "Hey, can we play? Hey, can we play? Hey, it's
Right.
playtime, right? Hey, can we play? Oh, yeah, you fed me last night, but you forgot to feed me today. By the way, when are we playing?" And it's just it's a full-time job in and of itself. You just don't realize it because you give them some pills and they stop barking for the night. Like, and that's way more fucked up than the the shit that I'm talking about. I'm kind of going on a tangent about this, but I guess my point being,
Yeah. But it's all good. Just take the ship wherever you want.
yeah, you have choices that you make at every kind of, I guess, fork in the road. And those choices not only have consequences, but those consequences will then have consequences. And you can't look back after you've taken three or four forks and say from the place that you're at and look back and say, well, that doesn't seem very fair. Because when you were at that fork, you were still you, just with less information, less perspective, and you made that decision. It's still you that
Right.
made the decision, though. It's not a different person forcing that decision on you. It's something you have to own up to. I think regret happens when people make things they want happen and then realize they didn't want them, not that they can't make things happen. That
Right.
that seems to happen a lot more. That's why so many people of like fucking suicide is such a high rate in all these hyper developed countries because people achieve their goals and then realize that's not really what their goal was in the first
That
place.
was
It was the
never that.
achieving that they wanted. Yeah,
Right. It
journey
was
before
never the.
destination, right?
Yep. It's people are pretty short sighted. And no matter how aware of death you think you are, or how aware of the end you think you are, most people aren't. You don't have that feeling of dread in you,
Mhm.
and especially with the newfound freedoms over the last like 50, 60 years of Western women, they're able to, like rebel against society. Like, you have to have a family, you have to settle down. They want to be free too. They want to do what they want, but you will find Mother Nature has enforced a time limit.
Yeah.
And you're seeing more and more slews of these older um, older female journalists freezing their eggs or lamenting they haven't found a partner in their late 30s and time is running out and they can feel it now. And so if you're young, if you're a teenage woman or even in your mid 20s, you're like, fuck no, I don't care. I never want kids. I never want them, blah blah blah. That'll change for
Yeah.
most of them. By the time but it'll be too close to the time it's too late when they'll actually focus on the real thing. And I there's a whole there's a whole bunch of shit to get into with that because it's not all in the fault of women too. There's a lot of deadbeat ass dudes now who don't
Yeah.
give a fuck and are, you know, it's they think that they're breathing it's enough. It's not. But well, there's just so many factors that go into it. But when you talked about like Asian culture, it's particularly brutal for women. In most East Asian countries, they all have a concept. It's by different names in every country. Like in China, they call them leftover women, and in Japan, they call them like, what do they call them? Fruit cakes or Christmas cakes or something? Because
Yeah, Christmas
it's
cakes, yeah.
yeah, it's pretty brutal,
Yeah.
and it's about the age 28. Like
Yeah.
if you're 28 and not in a committed relationship or married, or even if you are and you haven't had children yet, you get hounded by
Mhm.
family, coworkers, parents, everything. When are you going to have kids? When are you going to have kids? You're practically forced into having children.
Yeah.
Um, and I have a lot of friends in China, particularly who life when I hear women in the US complain, like, you don't know what it's like to have a man catcall you or whatever. First off, I do know what it's like to be catcalled. It doesn't happen often, but it has happened. It is awkward, and I do understand it. And two, every almost I would say almost every single person that's female that I knew in China had been absolutely sexually harassed at work. Like very like had to quit jobs because they wouldn't sleep with a boss or
Mm.
something. And then they go home and their parents are disappointed that they don't have children and they yell at them every day until they have babies, and they're all forced into relationships. They're all forced to have babies. None of them are happy. So we obviously don't want an extreme like that, but there's um there needs to be an understanding that you do have a biological time limit, and you don't know yourself as well as you always think you do, and sometimes you need to think beyond the night. Like, not what am I going to drink tonight? How am I going to party tonight? You need to actually think about how can you better society? How can you better yourself? Um and it's hard. I mean, it's not easy to take that position and think bigger and
Mhm.
take that into like why you should raise a family and why you should have kids.
Right.
Because not
Well,
not
yeah.
everybody should, but
Yeah, it's that's never been you go back like yeah, I mean like you said, I think 50, 60 years is
you never
like
had a
even maybe works
choice,
for this example. It's not even about the choice. It's like you go back to when people were literally starving, like starving from the day that they were born, basically. And I
right?
don't mean starving as in like dying. I mean like they're never full. You don't have the burden, but also you don't have the I guess luxury of thinking ahead. Humans have only really started thinking ahead, I would say, right around when like the Roman Empire showed up, probably.
I mean,
Because like prior to that, in the medieval ages, in the times before, like anything before the birth of like modern religion, the only thing people have ever thought ahead to was death. They never thought ahead to like, who am I going to be in 10 years? Yeah, they would think ahead to like, I want to have kids someday or whatever. That's just, but that's again, that's biological. Thinking of
right?
yourself as a goal and thinking of yourself as someone moving towards a goal is a relatively new concept. And the reason that gives so
Yes.
many people anxiety, and this is not like a fact, this is my opinion on it. The reason that that gives so many people anxiety is because you are not wired to think that way. Humans are wired to think about, where is my food? Okay, I have food. Where is my shelter? Okay, I have shelter. Where is the enemy? There is no enemy. Now what do I think about? And we are
Right.
burdened again with this now process of like, and it's so smart how, like, the fucking the whole system is set up in a way to never give you time to look back on what you've accomplished. It's always forcing you to keep looking forward so you never feel fulfilled. And that sensation of like thinking how close you are to that fulfillment puts it at such an unrealistic expectation that once you do get that level of success or fame or like just whatever it is you're looking for, you realize how empty and shallow it is, because that's not what people need. People need
Right.
relationships. They need to be close to one another. They need a reliable, generally small, for some people it's different, group of people that they can rely on, not just family, but close friends and companions, and obviously a significant other. They need people that they can look back on at the end of the day and be proud of, because no matter how much you want to try to escape the human genome and the way that we are programmed to think about things, there are certain things that we do that make us feel good, and it'll be like that until the end of time, unless we truly start splicing shit in a cyberpunk fucking way. You always
Right.
want to feel like you've done a good job, no matter what you're doing. And one of the best ways to do that is to be reminded of it daily, which is what having kids is. Every day you go to bed and you see your son or your daughter asleep safe in bed, you feel good, because that is your brain telling you, nicely done. That's going to be you someday, and they'll be doing that. Keep it up. Whereas if you're just alone in your fucking basement all day, not doing anything, your mind will start to wander, and you will start to think about all the awful things that you could have been doing and all the great things you could have been doing. And it's overwhelming. And that's where that anxiety comes from, is the unknown. And
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you have.
it's a tough cookie to crack, right? It's a weird conundrum. There's no way to fix it. You just have to learn how to either tolerate it or just be like me and fucking you fucking dangle so close to that sociopathic edge of the clock that you don't really care about it too much, I think.
Yeah. I
I don't
mean,
know.
I I don't really care that much about what other people do, as long as
Yes.
I do
Yeah.
do the right thing. But
Hmm.
I do want, there are some people who just don't know what the right thing is. They don't have, they never had a father. They never had a mother. They don't
Hmm.
understand certain things. And at the rate people are exposed to things right now with fucking social media, I don't know how anybody pays attention to anything more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, everything is, you see, like, you get literal perfection and idealization shoved in your face 24/7.
Hmm.
Like, you're constantly seeing what you want, like where you want to be in life, or what you want, or who you wish you were, or like, I mean, that wishing I was somebody else is, I've never wished that in my life. Never. Not even when I
Yeah.
was
Me neither.
obese. So I don't, that's such a foreign concept to me. I don't understand it at all. I really can't connect with people when they're like, "Oh, I wish I was tall. I wish I was." I've never wished I was another human. I love my
Yeah, I
life.
mean,
Even when I
maybe the
hated, I loved
closest
it.
I've come to something like that is being curious about what it would be like. I often think about like how, and again, I don't want to dox myself, but I often think about how few of my people there are in this country and how
Hmm.
lucky I am to be here. And then I wonder what it would be like to just be born here and how different my
Right.
life would have been growing up. I don't yearn for it, but I am very curious about it. Do you ever have that for anything?
Occasionally I do wonder if, like, I was born somewhere else, how would I
Yeah.
feel? Because
Yeah.
anytime I have this check that I put myself through whenever I feel a certain way about something, particularly when I see it in the news. So let's say I see something in the news like, um, we're bombing Yemen because of this or whatever. And I'm like, fuck yeah, go America. And then I'm like, wait, why do I not like Yemen? And I need
Yeah.
to go. Then I like learn about Yemen, and I'm like, maybe we shouldn't be bombing it. You know, like I always want to check
Yeah.
myself. I don't want other people to. I don't want to be programmed into thinking or feeling a certain way.
Hmm.
Um, and because of that, I've completely forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's my
we were
bad.
talking about, we were talking about, you know, like wishing you were somebody else. So I use that to like put myself in other people's shoes, or like if I was born there and I grew up like this, I would feel this way. So I get it. Um, that doesn't Now there's a lot of people who use that to justify bad behavior. You know, like when there was rioting all over the country last year, and people are like, "Well, you're white, you don't get it," and I'm like, I can agree with the sentiment that they're downtrodden. Things have been stacked against them. Things are bad. That doesn't give you the right to kill people and smash small businesses.
Yeah.
Um, you don't
Folks,
ever get the
uh,
right to commit evil.
yeah, folks, I just want to say I don't think there's going to be very many funnies or guffaws in this one because I want to pick Slick's brain about one more thing.
Oh,
And
okay.
if we find a way to make it haha giggle giggle, awesome. But you introduced me to a uh and you did this unwittingly, by the way, and I'm curious if you can pick up on what I'm talking about before I name it. But you
Ethical
introduced me to a way
hedonism.
of living. Say it again.
Ethical hedonism.
You got it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
let me take you back to like maybe shit. This would have been 10 years ago, 9 years ago maybe. I would have been 16 or 17. And one day I
Mm-hmm.
log on to Facebook. I'm like, "Ooh, look, it's all the funny stuff. Here's all my funny friends." And then I see a post by none other than my co-host here. And yeah, he mentioned something. I can't remember the exact post, but you said something about ethical hedonism, and I looked it up.
Right.
And I'll just give you the the broad definition. Obviously, you know what it is, but for the people listening,
Sure.
ethical hedonism, at its simplest, is the claim that all and any or excuse me, the claim that all and the only pleasure has positive importance, and all and only pain or displeasure has negative importance. This importance is to be understood non instrumentally, that is, independently of the importance of anything that pleasure or displeasure might cause or prevent. So, to put that into layman's terms, basically, if our relationships, our achievements, knowledge, our character states, blah, 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 uh, give us pleasure and don't harm anyone else, they are good. They are objectively good.
Right.
If our pleasure, our achievements, relationships, knowledge, blah, 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 cause other people or ourselves pain or displeasure, they are objectively bad. And when I thought
Right.
about that, I really put everything I've done and plan to do in my life into perspective of that kind of equation. And I realized because I was in a very bad place when I was like 17, 18. I was very depressed, very anxious about everything. I would stay awake at night just staring at the ceiling, begging not to wake up the next day because I did not want to face whatever that day had. Like it was not good.
That sounds exactly
And
like where I was when I was 18.
yeah,
Like I was in
and
the same boat.
yeah, and when I started thinking about it as a matter of like just a simple formula, like is what I'm doing causing other people to feel pain or displeasure? And I realized there was some stuff that I was. I'll give you a very simple example. When I was younger, I was very selfish and very disrespectful towards my parents. I would not make my bed. I wouldn't like brush my teeth. I wouldn't fucking go to school. Like just very stupid stuff that I did out of like a feeling of rebellion or because I was displeased with something they did or said or whatever. And when I started to follow this, like, I don't even know if you want to call it a philosophy, but when I started to follow this formula, I found that it made me happier to see them happy. And I know that's a novel concept, but it made me happier, but it also gave me a sense of fulfillment to follow those steps. Because every time now I think about doing something, like it's become like unconscious, but I'll legitimately sit there and I'll like debate on fuck, not even a difficult decision, but like, man, should I get fast food today? And I'll think about it. This gives me pleasure. It'll give me pleasure. It won't cause anyone else pain. But maybe when I get home and my mom has made a meal and she sees that I ate out again and I am pretty heavy, maybe that'll give her displeasure. And I'll think, well, fuck it. Maybe I won't do that then. That's just a very basic example. And that process happens instantly in the back of my head. But it is not something that happens naturally. You have to like train yourself, or at least I did. I don't know about other people. I had to train myself to think in literal like good and evil, basically, and then find a way to justify all the shit that I'm doing. Like, here's a good example. I had to justify the fact that I liked video games so much because when I thought about it, my parents hated that I spent so much time playing video games on my computer and all this other stuff. But I really liked playing video games. I'm like, man, it's so fun. It's so engaging. I meet all these cool people and I have friends all around the world and all this, that, and the other. And so I came to the realization they find displeasure because not because video games are bad, but because they don't understand it. And so one day, or
Right.
it took more like a week, honestly, but every day I brought them down to my computer and I'm like, hey, check this out. And I showed them what I was doing. I had them even talk to some of my friends as like a joke or a meme. And after like a week, they kind of understood a little bit better, like, oh shit, this is not just like him fucking staring at a screen, his brain's melting. He's actually doing stuff, he's interacting with people, he's gaining experiences, maybe not as authentic as it would if I was, traveling the world, but let's be realistic. I'm not in that position, at least not yet. And so when I started to realize that other people had to kind of learn how to do this as well, maybe not in the same regimented way I was doing it, it became a lot easier to deal with stuff like anxiety, depression, etc. Because I realized that all those things had causes. They weren't just there. Sometimes they are. I mean, I
Right.
legitimately get really fucked up around springtime. Something about February through like April, I'm just not the same person sometimes. I just feel shitty. I'm cranky. I'll even tell my friends, like, yo, I'm just going to be online. Don't hit me up. I'm not in a good mood. And I don't know if that's the seasonal shit. I don't know if it's all the nicotine in my system, maybe causing some ups and downs. Who knows? But I can deal with it. And so all I have to do is give other people a heads up. But for the most part, everything I feel is cause and effect. It's uh, a formula of causality that makes me feel certain ways. And when I came to that really simple but very in-depth realization, everything changed almost overnight. And so I wanted to thank you for that first and foremost,
Oh yeah,
because
no
you're the one that brought
problem.
it to my attention. But yeah, I kind of want to know what your thoughts are on it and if that's still something 10
Um
years later that you think is valid.
so it is. I've I've kind of taken it in my own direction. So I'm deciding how deep to go because it could get really long and kind of
Not
meandering. But
not
I
not a lot of giggles here, folks. The buoy is
yeah,
starting
it's
to really get droopy here. We're yeah, we're
the
we're sinking.
the I was really searching for something like a meaning to life, right? I was and it started taking me in all kinds of weird directions. I was trying all kinds of weird shit, looking at every religion. I mean, I was reading the Quran. I was reading all these Buddhist texts from different types of Buddhism. I was just like going to temples. I went to a fucking. I would go meet with fucking weirdos putting crystals on my head and putting singing bowls in my ear and stuff, and like I was just like any system of belief or faith or uh, I was trying to find something to pull me out of this funk I was in. And I'm not saying being an atheist causes this negative thought, but it's easy to get nihilist.
Mm.
Like,
That's
it's
what I
easy to
yeah,
really
that's
be
what
like,
I felt.
nothing matters. We all live,
Yeah.
we all die, nothing matters. And the truth I found is that everything matters. Every single thing matters. Whether you can perceive its importance on how it shapes history is irrelevant. You will never know what your actions are or your existence, how it shapes the world around you, but it does.
Yeah.
Um, and you didn't come to this planet by an accident. Nobody is in a even if like your parents say you were born as an accident, no, but you weren't, because you were carried through pregnancy, you were carried to term, you were conceived. None of that is accidental. Like, it happened.
Hmm.
Um, and so I learned of a way to. I'm trying to think how I really came upon it. You know, like I was really getting into Buddhist philosophy, but I couldn't get down with. I have a real. I think it's a noble thing to try to not eat meat, right? And I
Hmm.
think animals are very recognizably intelligent, but to say that eating plants is superior is still killing. And especially if you have a faith that believes everything has life and everything has importance and everything has the soul in it,
Hmm.
eating grass is still killing.
Yeah.
So you can't claim any moral superiority for eating vegetables for sustenance. Until you can photosynthesize, you're just as guilty as not. So I didn't use it as like an excuse to eat meat, but that it there are certain things that need to make sense. It's like certain, I guess you would say, pleasures we seek out. Like, I like to eat it, and it doesn't hurt other humans if I do it,
Yeah.
and I do it responsibly, and I appreciate what I'm doing, and I understand the value of what I'm doing, and it's measured. And I started to apply that kind of. I was doing, before I knew even a name for it, I wanted to make sure everything I did didn't hurt other people. Because one
Hmm.
thing I learned from Buddhism that helped me change my life was self-reflection. Um, because when I was younger, I was really angry, and I was always like, "Fuck these whores, they don't like me. Fuck these dudes, they don't like me." Like, everything was like, I was mad at the world because the world rejected me, but I never looked at myself. Like, I never took an honest look at myself. Like, my attitude is shitty. Um, yeah, people don't like me because I'm overweight, but also they didn't make me that way. Whether they're
Yeah.
right or wrong is irrelevant. I have things I can fix.
Hmm.
So I took that and started changing my life. And then I realized, like, I stumbled onto this kind of accidentally, where I will live in, I will do as I want or as I will, as long as it doesn't negatively impact other people.
Hmm.
And so this also involves, like, it doesn't mean like, so a lot of people use ethical hedonism as an excuse to like do drugs and stuff, but you have to actually look at those actions like, it's not, you shouldn't, because those, if you were to do those things and they kill you, you would be hurting your family if you have loved ones that care.
Hmm.
Um, or you would do something that burdens society if you died. And it's not that I'm so strict like about it, but that like it's I think it's just an overall a better way to live, like because it gives you awareness of how your actions affect not only yourself,
Yeah.
and being, but also not denying certain pleasures for random arbitrary reasons. Like, once you've,
Yeah.
you know, you like, if you want to have a one night stand or something and it's between consenting adults, in this code of ethics, you have committed no sin.
Yeah.
You've done nothing wrong. Only if you have lied to achieve these ends, or, like, you had to lie to her to get her to sleep with you, then you've committed a sin. You have you have you have crossed the boundaries of what's considered ethical. But
Right.
if you live your life on this ethical means and do whatever you want, as long as it's, you're never mispresenting who you are, you're saying your intentions,
Hmm.
and it I don't know if that really answers your question about like how I got into it or what it, but I do still like live by that in a lot of ways. I still think it's a very valid way to live. It's it's very libertarian-esque, which I don't want to put it on a political compass, because I can't call myself a full libertarian, but it's very like, I don't need anything to tell me these things are wrong. I intrinsically know if it hurts somebody or makes them feel bad, it's wrong. That's all I need to
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um,
And for me, it was, yeah, that's the thing. I'm too cynical for traditional religion. It's not even that I'm too logical for it. It's I'm just I'm very skeptical of anything that promises something without something in return. And that might be a result of growing up the way I did, where like every waking day I was reminded, not just from my upbringing, but by the way I lived and comparing it to the way others lived, that I shouldn't really be here. I've always had kind of not like a imposter syndrome. It's not even close to that. It's more of like a I feel like a double agent. Like I feel like no one realizes that I shouldn't be here, and it's kind of cool. Is how I've always felt about it, honestly. And I'm glad that's the way my brain decides to work, because the the alternative is very depressing. But I've always, yeah. So when I was looking first into this, for me, it was almost entirely a mental shift. It was a perspective shift that made me stop being anxious and depressed. And I'm still pretty cynical, but not as cynical about everything. When you kind of talked about like you felt angry all the time, I never really felt angry. I felt ashamed. I felt a ton of shame when I was younger, because I felt like I was not good enough to do anything to get people to respect me or to, date me or to do whatever. And I
well, my
always
anger
would
was
like,
probably a mask. I mean, it was probably
sure,
because
yeah,
of that. Like I
yeah,
just
maybe.
a
And
cope.
so mine was just a shame deep enough to kind of impair me from looking for any solutions. I would rather just live in it and accept it than try to lie to myself, because yeah, I think lying to yourself doesn't help anybody. And once you learn to stop doing that, even if it's only bad things you can tell yourself, I think it's still better that those bad things are truthful than trying to lie to yourself and say positive things, because that's
Right.
when you start getting into some really dark corners, and things can take a real twist. I I wonder, um, as far as what you were saying about, um, shit, I lost it. You were kind of talking about how when you started to to live like that, you made a lot of conscious decisions about stuff. I wonder if people don't do that already unconsciously, because from my perspective, here's the thing. I started thinking about stuff like this maybe a few years ago, as far as this like other topic that I want to get into a little bit, but like where we're going to be in 10 to 20 to 50 years or whatever, because I only just realized this maybe 3 to 4 years ago. I'm probably going to be alive to see like 2060. I never thought about that. And when I thought
Right.
about it, again, I'm glad my brain works this way. I was stoked. I like
Right.
wanted to ensure that I would live to see all the crazy cool shit that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of bad stuff on the way there, obviously, but there's no shot it doesn't get more interesting, right? So when I
Well, think
realized
about
that, I really
1960
started
versus
taking strides to not just improve my life, but also to put myself in a place of opportunity to where I could potentially make it even easier to achieve that goal. Um, and I wonder if people don't do that already, just as a result of kind of like moral trickery. Like I honestly think Christianity specifically, I don't know too much about like other religions, but Christianity I think specifically is a very very well done uh like it's like a carrot on a stick type of thing. And
right.
it's very careful in how it does it. And I'll just say this as a disclaimer, I guess, but I don't believe in any sort of, life after death or God or whatever. I do believe that there is powers in the universe that are beyond us, but I don't think it's anything conscious of us. I'll put it that way. Uh, I think that Christianity is probably the greatest trick ever played on mankind, because compare it to something like Islam or like jingoism, or not jingoism. What the fuck is it called? Uh, like Confucianism, or
Oh,
like even
okay.
like Judaism.
Taoism.
Yeah,
Oh,
Taoism. Thank you. All of those are set in very rigid moral kind of like compasses, and they all have
right,
a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's very simple. The Quran especially tells you everything that's going to happen, and it is considered like the original words of the prophet, right? Whereas Christianity
hmm,
has built itself a like a back door to where they can always, due to inconsistencies and all this other stuff, they can always go back and kind of change things a little bit. And like even the stuff that they can't change, they'll just kind of brush it off and they say, "Ah, well, Jesus would understand that things are different now, or God knows that you
right,
do this, but as long as you repent and you follow the sacrament and this, that, and the other, He will understand that you have erred in your ways and you have sinned, and He will forgive you because it's all about forgiveness. It's awesome." So Christianity is a really, really subtle but very, very well made trick to get people to live however they want, really, as long as they follow like a couple of basic tenets and always
right.
apologize for them, right?
And
So when I realized that this thing that I'm doing is kind of equivalent to that, but without the apology part, I was pretty stoked because I'm like, oh, you're telling me that as long as I'm aware of the fact that I'm doing bad stuff, I can fix it and then not feel bad anymore. Like, I don't feel any guilt for the stuff that I used to do because I wasn't in the state of mind to fix it. There's no way I
right,
could have fixed it. That's who I was, that's who I still am. But now I have more knowledge and more information, and I have, it sounds pretentious, but I really just have a better perspective on everything that is happening with me and the people around me, to where I can now like enter a mind palace and make these decisions in front of a congress of my conscience and fucking like place a verdict on the smallest decisions that end up having a huge impact. Um I remember now the thing I wanted to talk about. It was you were saying like, uh like ethical hedonism has a lot also to do about the people around you and not wanting to cause them displeasure. And
right.
I thought about this funny thing. So there's a there's a bit where Keanu Reeves is on the Colbert Show, and he's promoting, I think, John Wick 3 or something, and it's a really funny dichotomy because it's an extremely violent movie about a guy out for revenge and everything, but then Keanu Reeves is like the nicest human maybe ever, like literally closer to Jesus than probably the actual guy. Um, but they're having this interview, they're cracking jokes, whatever. Stephen Colbert asks him, he says, like jokingly, because Keanu is just like, he just carries himself so gracefully. So he says, like jokingly, like kind of like tauntingly almost. He's like,
hmm
Keanu Reeves, what happens when we die? And Keanu kind of looks down at the ground for a second and he looks back up and he just kind of, to no one in particular, he says, I think that when we die, the people that love us will miss us. And
Right.
everyone's just like silent for like 5 seconds. And it's a pretty like melodramatic thing. Maybe it was scripted,
Right.
maybe it wasn't. Point being, that's kind of the whole basis of this, is like you can't look at it as like, oh, no one cares if I am here or not, no one cares if I attribute nothing to society. Look, at the end of the day, if you're honestly in that situation where you could die and nobody would notice, I can't help but feel you've made some pretty crazy decisions to get yourself there in the first place, unless you're maybe the most unfortunate person ever. I'm talking specifically, by the way, about people that live in the United States. Unless you're
Yeah.
specifically, or um, unless you're the most unlucky dude on the planet and you're just like, you're homeless, orphan, no friends, no family, no girlfriend, no wife, no kids, nothing. Like you are just a dude out on the street that no one even knows who you are. Even then, if you were to just go away someday, there might be people that like walked by the office every day and saw you and handed you a couple bucks, and then they're like, "Oh, hey, I wonder where Joe went." And even that to me is
Right.
worth the fight, right? Like
Yep.
it's worth the struggle. It might not be to that guy, but if all it took for me, and again, I don't, I can't, I can only speak on my own experiences, but if all it took for me to get out of that fucking hellhole that I was in was a positive mental shift, then for Joe on the street, it can't be much farther than that. Like, obviously, there's physical things preventing him to fucking live a good life. There's financial things stopping him too, but it really does start. The foundation of it all is the way you perceive things. And if you perceive things negatively all the time, you cannot be surprised when the results come back in the same way. That's
And
basically what ethical hedonism says. And I don't even think it's about tricking yourself. I think it's just about
no,
looking at
it's
things reasonably.
it's about honesty, real honesty, which like a lot of people
Yeah.
don't have.
Yeah,
They
it's hard.
won't
It's
they
it's
yeah,
it's
they
difficult.
because when I say that, like it sounds like it's easy, but it's hard when you have this intrinsic desire to do something even though it's wrong, and
Mhm.
that wrong has a ripple effect, that not an immediate wrong. Like it's when you want to do something pleasurable that doesn't have a direct impact on someone, you think you can still justify it this way, but if it has a ripple effect that would hurt somebody, you still shouldn't do it.
Mhm.
So, and it's also about having people underestimate maybe small amounts of what a small act of kindness can really do, and
Yeah.
don't have the proper gratitude for certain things. So when I was around 17, 18, I was in a really bad place, and I hated fucking school. Holy shit, did I hate school. I hated everybody in it.
Yeah, I dropped out because of that. Yeah.
Right. And uh I remember forever one day, uh a girl that I had no contact with before. I knew about her because she was relatively famous and her parents were very wealthy and own a chain of stores around here and stuff. I was in the hallway by myself. I passed her, just walking past. She looked over at me. She said, "Hey, how are you?" And she smiled and asked like just like one question and then waved and walked away. No reason. There was no reason. I was like weeks from wanting to blow that school up. I fucking hated it that much.
Yeah.
That one like no joke was like at my like wit's end. That like one act of kindness was like, holy shit, she didn't have to be nice to me. Why is she? She's popular, she's beautiful, she's rich. Why was she nice to me? Like I couldn't even compute why she was even nice to me. And it actually like fucked me up and stopped me like dead in my tracks, like wow, this person was nice for no reason. Like people do that. Like that's also how kind of fucked up my life was at that point, where
Mm.
somebody just fucking smiling and saying hi actually helped put my life on the right course. So like people don't have the proper amount of gratitude for small action, and also don't understand how their small actions affect other people, because
Mhm.
it probably, first off, it cost her nothing to do that, and probably meant nothing to her. She probably does that for anyone, everyone, whoever. That's just who she was. But like for me, that was such a foreign idea.
Yeah.
And then to have that, like I was like, oh shit, you can just be good, like no matter who
Is
you
there a
are.
chance, by the way, that that woman that that was esteemed First Lady, Michelle Obama?
Very possible.
Okay.
Except she was white at the time.
Okay. Maybe slightly less likely then. Uh,
Uh,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't like to think about this stuff too much anymore because I've solved it. And
right.
that sounds like, bold, but I've solved it to a degree where it's enough for me. I've never been, the most ambitious person in the room. I've never been like I'm gonna be president one day, or I'm gonna fucking do something that everyone remembers. I'm gonna leave behind a legacy. All I've ever wanted was to just, and again, maybe it's a result of my upbringing. I've just wanted to do my own thing, take care of the people I love, and feel as though I can go to bed and just like take a couple deep breaths and not have to think about X, Y, and Z, how I fucked up, did this, could have done this, I should have did that or whatever. And I can just do that now. And it feels so
Right.
good that it's like euphoric sometimes. Like I'll lay down to go to bed, and as long as I haven't, fucking stayed up till 6 in video games, I fucking wake up and I feel like, yeah, I feel euphoric like when I wake up now. And it's awesome. It's great. I would recommend it to anyone that's in a bad place. Ethical hedonism. There's not a lot to read on it. Started in like ancient Greece, I think, as a process of thinking. It was called the fuck did they call it? Like Euclidean.
There's a
Yeah, there's a weird term
there's
for it
another
that
term for it.
like you can read some more shit on, and I read all that when I was in high school, and it helped a ton. Yeah.
Even
Um,
if you want to go like D&D nerd chart, you can almost look at it like chaotic neutral. I mean,
yeah,
not
kind of.
exactly, but kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, because your actions, you have to make sure they're not harming people, so it can't be full chaos. But like
Mm,
in a lot of ways, it is down in like that chaotic neutral. Like you're not necessarily looking for good or evil. You're just doing what you want and not hurting people.
yep.
Um,
Yep.
it's um, but this was way too this was way too heavy. I want to talk shit. I want to make fun of
Okay.
morons. Now
Okay.
I need some catharsis.
Who do you
Um,
want to talk shit about?
the fucking people who comment on YouTube. Although it's much
Okay.
more ubiquitous now,
So like
in like the last
90% of the
15
world.
years. Yeah, but like the dredges of society. There's no hope.
Okay.
Just not. I mean, not obviously not everybody who made a comment on YouTube is
I was gonna say I comment on
is
YouTube
fucking
sometimes.
like
Shit.
I I've had a YouTube account for like 15 years and I've left like 6 comments on YouTube ever, if
Yeah,
even.
I don't comment very
Um,
often either.
yeah,
I help my
very
friend because
rarely.
he's a streamer and like a content creator, so I'll comment
Yeah.
on everything of his. But I don't count that because I'm just fucking moving the algorithm along.
So this is a topic that I actually was gonna bring up a couple weeks ago about how fucking hate-filled people are for no reason on YouTube. And then something else happened now this last week that's just brought this completely to the forefront of my mind. So I will I'll start this without getting too nerdy. I like to play some obscure Japanese rhythm games, right?
Hmm.
And I uploaded some footage to like a private gaming YouTube channel. I mean, the footage is publicly available, but there's nobody watching everything I put. Everything I put up has like 2 views. I don't even know why it has 2 views. It's mostly an archive for me. So like I have the footage just to watch it, to have like to see what I was doing, study it, get better, or just have something to show people like I did this. I'm not a great player, right? But I'm
Hmm.
decent. Somebody like randomly found the videos and like started downvoting all my videos and was like, cringe, this is lame. Like I don't know what whatever. So I just started looking back and I have a YouTube video from like 12 years ago that has like 30,000 views that was of a Street Fighter 2 tournament with a very famous player named Damdai, who I had played
Hmm.
with at the time. And so I started looking back at that and most of the comments are moronic. And they're like just vitriol and hate filled. And then so I started looking just like took a little walk through history and there's another video I have, which is footage of our friend playing another famous Street Fighter pro from another era, Mike Ross. And the first comment is gay. And it's fucking Mike
To be
Ross
fair,
on like a no health comeback. And the first comment is just gay. and, uh, and then so I go back again, and I have another video I recorded of Damned Eye playing another guy was spectating, and I recorded for him. And the first comment is, "Wow, bad players." And that doesn't sound like a bad comment, but Damned Eye is possibly one of the best Street Fighter 2 players to have ever played the game. Like, to have ever played, period. And someone's like, "Wow, bad players." And I'm like, okay. So I felt better about somebody else calling me dumb when one of the best players in the world, some random scrub online, is just talking shit.
Here's the thing.
So
Some of this shit. So there's an interesting tidbit about YouTube that not a lot of people know. YouTube is worldwide, obviously,
right.
but the United States is not the source of the most traffic on YouTube.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
not.
Okay.
It's number 2. Do you know what's number 1?
India.
India. India's
I
number
was
1.
okay.
So to me, every time I see some of those like 2 or 3 word comments, one of the words is usually misspelled or something.
Right.
All I could picture is like a middle-aged like Indian like
this is good.
salary worker
You know,
who's just
you might
sitting
be
at
right.
home, and somehow
So-
the algorithm finds his way to a fucking Damned Eye match, and he's popping off on fucking Ryu, and the guy's just like, "Oh, this is stupid," and he just comments gay. And to me, that is like, that's so fucking beautiful and so funny. And someone's saying, "Wow, bad players," watching fucking, oh dude, it's gold.
Well, and
It's
the
comedy
one
gold.
so the one guy too who like commented on my Poppin' Music video was like calling it lame and cringe and stuff, and he's like, there's nothing. He's got a profile of nothing.
Oh, always, yeah.
And it's like he has like some fucking anime girl profile picture who looks like she's 5 years old. I'm like, what is this shit? And so now I had a, you know, I have played Magic the Gathering on and off my entire life, actually, at this point. But I was never very good because I never played seriously because I hate playing with other nerds because they smell bad. I really can't fucking take it. And
Yeah,
I don't
card
like
game tournaments
arguing.
are really they are a an olfactory fucking
Dude,
sense first type of thing.
it's disgusting. It's not
Yeah.
even a meme. It's literally fucking smells like shit. And
Like, I
it's
thought
horrible.
FGC locals were bad. First time I showed up with one of my friends from Cleveland to a Yu-Gi-Oh major that he was at, I legit couldn't be in the room for more than 10 minutes. It was not only have those people not heard of deodorant, they've also like somehow found a way to like counteract people who do have deodorant. And
There's
it's like
I don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's awful.
So you know how cats have like this parasite in their urine? I forget what it's called, like
yes, it's exactly
plasmatoxosis or
that.
something,
Yeah.
whatever. So like, I wonder if like the ink on cardboard trading card games like sinks in through people's skin and makes them averse to showering and shit because they all
Oh, maybe.
stink. That's my theory. But so earlier this year, I made a legitimate push to get very good at Magic the Gathering because there's an online version that looks much prettier than the old ones, and whatever. I was just playing, and I actually got pretty decent. I hit top 200 in the world in the historic format, which is every card available in this digital client you could build decks from. So it's a pretty rough format. Like games are quick and brutal. And
a lot of broken shit.
Yeah, and I was hitting top 200, and I've just been uploading. Like, my YouTube was dormant for like a decade. I uploaded fighting game clips when I played a lot when I was younger, and then I did nothing with it. And I just started uploading clips, and mostly for myself, and I uploaded one in April. It's now October, and the thing had about 5 views for months. And then it just like for like a week, like picked up steam and got 100 and then 200. And then I woke up on like Sunday morning and it had 1,000 views. And by the end of the day, it was at like 3,000 views. And it's sitting now at like 80,000 views over the last few days. my fucking YouTube, my fucking notifications are going off constantly I'm getting subscribers, people commenting constantly. So a lot of the comments have been fairly positive on this because it's a pretty, if you play Magic or like are pretty aware, it's a pretty fun clip. But there's fucking people arguing about Yu-Gi-Oh! Has nothing to do with the fucking video. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I don't care. Like, why do you put this on? Like, I understand you put
Yu-Gi-Oh
shit
is
in the world.
definitely the black sheep of the card game community. 100%. Those are the outcasts. Those are the loners.
And like, even when you, so I'm not shitting you. You started talking about how the largest user base for YouTube is actually India and all of that. I refreshed my YouTube and checked the comment. Now I know this is not an Indian name necessarily, but there's a comment right now from Abdallah Hassan commented, "This was very entertaining. GG."
Dude, the internet is so awesome. One more thing I wanted to talk about. Do you remember back in like early, maybe 2007 or 2008, when CNN or whoever it was first picked up on like Anonymous? Remember the Guy Fawkes group that was, and they coined them the internet hate machine, and that became like a huge meme everywhere.
Right.
So Anonymous like still has that title, but there was another group of people that were assigned the title the internet hate machine, and it was by a very popular YouTube, like, not even content creator. He was a Let's player who also happened to be an old school FGC guy named Darkside Phil. And I'm not going to get into the story of DSP because that's a whole podcast on its own. But that guy's got some history. But anyway,
I don't want to interrupt you, but I already want to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I had interactions with DSP in like 2006.
Yeah.
On the Shoryuken forums, which was a forum for people who were like high-level Street Fighter players, and you know, there wasn't anywhere else to go. I knew who he was before he started doing that YouTube shit. Yeah. He has always been an asshole.
Yeah.
There were people like legitimately like, if you show up to this tournament, we're gonna break your face.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't go to Evo one year. He was not officially banned. I think he had old videos saying like he was banned from Evo and couldn't go. He wasn't banned. A guy named Jaha was gonna punch him in the mouth and break his face. So he was too scared to go.
To tell you who Darkside Phil is in like a sentence, this is a guy that used to play fighting games at a relatively high level that has been coasting off of a Final Four. I don't even think he won. He's been coasting off of a Final Four
Evo East
in Street Fighter 2 Super Turbo that happened in like 2005 or 2006.
Yeah, so 2004.
And he's been coasting off that as his like highlight of his career.
Dude, I'm gonna go full nerd. This was 2004 Evo East, so a qualifier for the biggest fighting game tournament.
Yeah,
Evolution. It was a qualifier tournament. He placed 4th. He was the highest placing American, so that is kind of relevant because Americans tend to get bodied at that game by Japanese players.
Right.
So that is relevant. He did very well.
Well, your name's Damdai, obviously.
Well, right, and I don't even know if Damdai was playing competitively at that point. I don't know. Anyway, this version of the game they were playing and why everyone else did so bad.
It was like because it was the port or some shit.
Yeah,
right?
It was a port
stupid like that.
It was like a PlayStation 1 port on an anthology disc that had like lag and horrible load times and things didn't work frame perfectly. So people who were actually super good at the game couldn't get anything to work. I do always wonder how the Japanese players still play. You know, the best players still won, but DSP used Blanca, as far as I know, who was like least affected, being a charge character, like easier to do his moves. He was less affected by the frame imperfections. So anyway, that's his whole claim to fame, is like a shitty version of Street Fighter 2 at a shitty qualifier tournament. He was a good player. He was
decent. He wasn't bad.
Yeah,
but
you don't top 4 that tournament on accident.
Like,
but he wasn't. No, he was no. Yeah,
But
He's
anyway,
not.
my point
Yeah,
being, when he started his YouTube Let's Play series type thing, he coined his comment section the internet hate machine. Because here's the thing. I don't think Darkside Phil has a single actual fan. I think every person since the beginning of his channel to the end has watched him and will watch him just to hate on him.
I
Like
think so.
like to the point where he named himself the King of Hate because he would just get fucking everyone's calling him fat, smelly, stupid, ugly, bucktooth, like everybody. Like, and every time he played Street Fighter, which people always wanted to see him play Street Fighter online for, because he would just rage about lag and get beaten by people that are like not very good. He'd get
Garbage.
super
Yeah, he
angry
would get
and
destroyed.
everyone just dogged him all day. And so when you started talking about YouTube comments being so hateful and vitriolic, that's kind of what came to my head because I remember the internet hate machine is still
Right.
alive and
Was
thriving.
his
Apparently, I don't pay too much attention to comment sections of any videos anymore, but there. Here's one interesting thing. So I've fallen into a really weird rabbit hole recently, and I'm curious if you've seen any of these videos. I hope for your sake you haven't. So
uh-oh.
on YouTube,
Let's
there is a series of what I am pretty sure AI generated YouTube channels. And
Okay.
what they are is they are channels that recap movies. So let's say, for example, let's just take a movie like Titanic, okay? Very common, very obvious. There'll be a channel called like Recap Weekly or Movie Recap Live or just like something like that. Like no specific creators behind this. The the video starts and they're just playing the Titanic movie in the background with no audio, and I shit you not, it is like a Microsoft Sam-esque voice talking over
Okay.
the whole video, giving you like a 10 to 15-minute synopsis of the movie. It's like watching movies on steroids because you literally
No,
get
I've
everything important from the movie, but you don't have to actually sit through 2 hours of the movie. And the reason I've fallen into it is because there's all these shit sci-fi movies that I'm always curious about but don't want to waste 2 hours watching, especially stuff like these Netflix originals and fucking Amazon Prime original movies. Like they're never any good unless you hear about them. And so I don't want to waste my time, but I am curious about them. And so I watched like 2 or 3 of these videos and now they're everywhere in my fucking feed. I cannot get rid of them. So last night I legit spent like 2 hours watching these movies. And there's like it's just every channel is slightly different, but they're all the same. It's like an AI voice speaking. Like someone clearly wrote this script, or maybe it's machine learning. I don't know. And by the way, they all have like a million plus views. So they're not like, I'm pretty sure they're monetized because it's fair use or whatever. So they're not
right.
like a meme. Like there's people watching this. The most interesting part of these videos in particular is the comments because the comments also feel like they're AI generated. Like I cannot make this up. It's hold on, I just have to find an example for you. It is legitimately so fucking absurd. All right. Here's an example of a video title for these channels. Like it even sounds like shit that you just would write if you had no emotion, okay? This is a review of the movie Joker that came out last year, okay? Like the movie
Okay.
about the Joker. The title of the video and it's the first letter of every word is capitalized, by the way. Failed comedian shoots the host live on TV after he makes fun of him. 700,000 views. Okay, this was uploaded 5 days ago. Here's a comment. Uh, all it takes is just one bad day. Joker. Uh, always be kind as people are fighting a harder battle. Plato. And then, like, movies that show the perspective of the quote unquote villains are gold. All the time we thought he was evil. Turns out he just had a bad life. Frowny face. Like, no one is having any sort of like. There's no hate. There's just
Right.
nothing.
There's no
It's
interaction
like
really. Like
yeah.
it's
The best way I can put it is it's like reading the equivalent of what the adults in Charlie Brown say. Like where it's
wah
just like
wah 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 wah.
yeah, want. Like it's reading that. None of these
You
are
know,
actual substantial comments. Like they have no substance whatsoever. But there's millions of them. There's hundreds of these comments, and they're all the same. Like This is so
It's
depressing. It shows to don't judge a book by its cover. 700 uploads. What is happening? Like, I'm
it's
legit. Every time I look at these comments, I feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like reality's
dude,
bending around me. They're all
you've
robots.
stumbled
I'm
into
convinced.
something. It's definitely bots. And
It has to be, right?
so what happened recently is I didn't know. I knew prominent YouTubers made a lot of money and were wealthy, right? So I knew if you had relatively good view counts and interaction on YouTube, you were rich. I didn't know how rich even moderate
Oh yeah.
content creators are.
Oh
So
yeah.
there's a guy I follow who plays like Magic the Gathering, and he gets about 50,000 views a video. Now he has a lot of interaction because he streams too, and he has a lot of people who pay to subscribe. But
He's
he
probably got
makes
daily uploads. Yeah.
$30,000. Yeah, he uploads daily, and they get like 50 to 100,000 views. He
hmm
makes like 30K a month.
Yep.
That's He makes a minimum wage salary in a year every month.
Yep.
So he's beyond wealthy now.
Yeah.
So if these guys are getting damn near 1 million views on this, that's got to be all AI generated.
hmm
Just
And
like
someone in the Maldives is making fucking millions a year doing this shit.
right. So it's like those people who have like a bot. They just copy and paste a Reddit thread and have a bot go read it, and half
Yep.
the time the words don't even make sense. They
They
don't
don't. Yeah.
actually. They just fucking copy paste
Like
it and then
even
make a video.
yeah, like even the fucking voiceover that's the weird Microsoft Sam voice is
Mm-hmm.
full of like inconsistent grammar.
Right.
But like it'll say shit like the main character, John, is an engineer and she goes and it's a dude. It's a dude on the screen and she
Right.
goes to work every day. He likes to hang out with his friend, Frank.
That's how
And then they go
you
like
can
it's
tell.
dude, it's legitimately AI. Like it's so
Right.
scary. It's
It's
terrifying.
AI. It's either Skynet becoming self-aware, like it's funding its own design.
That'd be
So it's
so
like
tight.
right. It's getting YouTube money to like refunnel into its own servers, or it's like Indians, Chinese, or North Koreans. It's
That would
straight
make
up
sense too. Yeah.
it's straight up North Koreans. You know how much fucking money they can make and launder doing this? Like
hmm Well, that's the other thing I was
people,
thinking too is maybe it's just a big laundering scheme. Like maybe
yeah,
these crypto people found out that like oh like we could probably subsidize a lot of this money by pushing it through YouTube, so they'll pay for all these views and then they'll pay for all these bot comments and then it's like here's what I made my money doing and here's where I spent it and yeah, I don't know. There's so many different ways it could go. Um I don't want to talk about it because you spent a whole episode on it, but man, I wish I was there when you guys were talking about the fucking Twitch leaks because
oh
I
right.
got deep into that shit. The Facebook stuff I didn't get too deep into. I was able to kind of keep up on everything you were saying, but the Twitch stuff, there's some shit in there, bro. All of
So
their red team data got leaked, which means every
right.
single person's stream key was leaked, so everyone had to reset stream keys.
I had to change
Uh,
mine on my 24/7 stream channels.
Yeah, like
I
everyone
had to
got
change the
disconnected
keys.
from all their third-party apps on Twitch. Everyone has to reconnect all their shit. Like it was the fact that that website is still up and running is a miracle. And you
It did
specifically
get
said like those
defaced. Did you
engineers
see
are
that?
dog shit. I guarantee you Twitch has the worst support staff and actual like low-level coding team probably in the universe. They have the worst staff imaginable, top to
Did
bottom.
well, first off, I'm 100% sure of that. And um second, did you see it did get defaced?
Say
Somebody
it again?
somebody hacked into Twitch and defaced the site. They like pasted Jeff Bezos' face all over a bunch of different elements.
No, I
It
didn't see
got
that. That's
reverted.
awesome.
Yeah, it got caught and got reverted, but there's video of it somewhere. So somebody
That's
did get
amazing.
in and breach. I knew a second that those red team tools were gonna them. Like they can't patch fast enough.
No,
They're
yeah,
getting
it's
breached.
over.
Um, and what was I know a lot of people were really hanging on like the financial data, but I actually sent a paste bin to you of like the partner surveys. They were still
Yeah.
semi-anonymized, but it was every
Mm,
partner survey response
mhm.
was now leaked. And I
Yeah.
thought that if you can ever identify or trace that back, like holy shit.
That's
Um,
liquid gold right there. Yeah,
right.
people were like all talking about how much people make, and I'm like, the amount of money they make for the most part is public. Most of these
Pretty
streamers
much.
have their sub goals or whatever on the fucking screen. So you literally just take how many subscribers they have, multiply that by a
It's like
factor of either
250 a sub
3 to
or
4
whatever.
usually, and that's how much money they make from subs. So everyone's like, "Oh, he's a millionaire." I'm like, "Yeah, no shit. You're paying $5 a month to him, and so
Because
are 20,000 other people. Do the math." What's
I
really interesting is the
occasionally
fact that this still is alive after one of the most
right.
catastrophic leaks I've
So
ever seen. The fact that people
what's
aren't talking about it more is absurd.
so that's what's this is what sparked me to actually think about using YouTube for creative endeavors more than Twitch is when I saw so that one magic creator I was talking about on YouTube, his Twitch, what he makes from Twitch leaked. So he made a YouTube video talking about it. And then he was like, I'm just going to come clean and show you everything. And he loaded up his creator dashboard in YouTube and showed how much he made in YouTube. And then he's like, this is why you use YouTube and not Twitch.
Yeah,
And he was
it's
showing like the ad revenue and he gets so much
yeah.
more direct revenue.
Mhm.
So I run like a shitty 24/7 stream just for fun on Twitch. And occasionally people sub. And when they throw a $5 sub at me, I get $2 from that.
Yeah.
I'm an
Yeah, because
affiliate.
you're not partnered. Yeah.
Right. I get $2.
Yep.
Maybe 250. I get half. I get half or less than half. It's fucking horseshit. And my
Mhm.
ad revenue is like a penny per hit, and I don't know. I don't think it's 1-to-1 even per ad.
No.
So
Yeah,
it's
Twitch actually, I think, as far as uh, so like talking from a partnered basis, as far as like for the high level creators, I think it actually does pay more per user watching
well,
your
they get a
content,
salary,
but they
right?
but they have significantly less. It's like a 25 or maybe 30 to 1 ratio of people on YouTube versus people on Twitch. Twitch grew by like 1,000% during COVID because everyone was at home and like Among Us was so fucking big. Twitch grew by like 800 or 1,000% or some like absurd number. And even
Right.
after that, it's like 30 to 1 based on what YouTube has compared to Twitch as far as user count. Now, obviously, like the one is like a VOD slash like vlogging slash all hobbies, all tutorials, whatever service, and the other is a live streaming primarily gaming focused thing. But
Right.
even then, like the gaming on YouTube, yeah, generally does significantly better if you target it towards YouTube. But the people on
Right.
Twitch like the culture more because they're all gamers there. It's not just randos watching your videos.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. You guys covered pretty much everything I wanted to say, but the red team stuff was very crazy that shit got leaked. I could not believe
Yeah,
it.
that that shows it was one, it was probably an inside leak, or it was
Hmm.
somebody who had a very, very high level account to even have
So
access to where that shit
here's an
would have
interesting
been.
tidbit. There was an employee. Um, I don't have names or anything. This was like a thing I saw on VG or something. But there was an employee that worked at Valve for like 15 years that then moved to Twitch and worked as a like software engineer for them. And that employee has not been there. He quit earlier this year.
Okay.
And Steam is the largest gaming uh, storefront on the internet. It's like the largest virtual gaming storefront on the internet. It's where you buy all your games if you want to play games on your computer. And Amazon was working on a competitor to Steam.
Right.
So if we want to put on the hats for just a second, let me put on my hold on. Let me just adjust it a little bit. All right, my tinfoil is on, secured tightly.
Hmm.
There is a world in which this guy learns about Amazon making a Steam competitor and thinks to himself, you know what, this place is going down. I don't like Amazon. I don't like the way they do business. Twitch sucks. All my my coworkers are fucking retards. I'm gonna go back to Valve and I'm gonna offer them a blank check, or I'm gonna show them this, and they're gonna give me a blank check for how much they want. And I wouldn't be surprised if like Valve said no, or maybe
Right.
they said yes, but Valve says no, and he's like, "Fuck it, then I'm just gonna leak it," and he just puts it out there. I would not be
Probably,
surprised if that was the case.
that's a
The whole thread on 4chan is saying it's the same team that did like a lot of other shit recently. I don't buy that necessarily because Twitch is so small compared to a lot of the stuff that they've hit. Like IG was hit like a month
unless you
ago or
go
something,
by
and a bunch of other
their
stuff.
unless you go by their affiliation to Amazon. Basically, being an Amazon subsidy,
That's
then it's
true.
one of the
Yeah, I
biggest
guess you
tech
could go
companies
there.
on the planet with CIA contracts. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many things it could be, and it's like, even if you're not a conspiracy person, you have to look at this like Facebook and then this Amazon owned subsidy within days of each other. Like, holy shit.
Hmm.
Um, and this was a very comprehensive leak, not like a little password database from 5 years ago or something. Like, it was everything. It was everything. Like, that site is fundamentally compromised. It's ridiculous. It actually should be super embarrassing for Amazon even to there. People's heads should be rolling. Like, they should have entire change over in leadership over this. I can't imagine these companies just rolled over and took this. And that whole like Steam competitor is funny too because they codenamed it Vapor.
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw that, but yeah, so they codenamed it Vapor just like it was like basically copying the Steam name. And can you think about, like, okay, you said the word retard earlier. Now imagine you're using Twitch's Vapor and you say the word retard in a game, so you get banned from Twitch and you can't access your game catalog anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
And
fuck
your
that.
Amazon fucking
Right.
balance gets locked and you can't purchase anything off Amazon.
Right. You can't buy groceries anymore because that they've taken over the government. And
You said a
so,
naughty word. You're
yeah,
suspended for a week without pay because you also work
no,
at the warehouse.
yeah, no, you can't go to work at the warehouse as a drone. You can't get your Amazon groceries delivered because you said retard on Twitch.
Yeah. Jeff Bezos is in his 4th term as president. Takes away your Snap
Right,
card.
man.
If
So
only.
I think maybe we'll get into this more next week with our cybersecurity analyst, Michelle Obama.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I left this out earlier, but she was really busy investigating that stuff in Norway.
Oh,
So,
okay.
on top of being a medium, a cybersecurity specialist, uh, sounding expert, she's also part-time PI. Yeah, she's a private investigator. So,
Wow.
best of luck to
That's
her.
interesting. So, yeah,
Hard to trace the serial number on fletched arrows, but
right.
we'll see what she can do.